Hello everybody, my name is Xuul and welcome to Dishonored. That's right, we're looking at Dishonored. In honor of Dishonored 2 coming up pretty soon, I thought that I would go back and review this old classic game. Well, it's not actually that classic, but it's old. Anyway, I'm terrible at intros. So yeah, we're looking at Dishonored today. As usual, we're going to be looking at the settings, the plot, the progress, and we're going to be doing a little bit of spoilers in today's video because this game's been out for a while, so I'll try and catch up on the lore so far. Now, I have played this game extensively. I have close to 100 hours played in it. I have done all the endings. I've done basically everything that needs to be done in this game, so don't worry too much about me not knowing what I'm talking about, although I'm sure I'll make some mistakes along the way. Without further ado, we shall get started by looking at the settings in Dishonored as per usual. I'll try and throw some links in the description or whatnot to timestamp all the stuff and whatever else we may need. Alrighty, so it's time to take a look at the settings for Dishonored. Now, the settings in this game are fairly basic. There's nothing fancy here, so the graphics aren't going to change all too much. But where the real magic shines in this game is the customizable user interface. Now, I want devs to take note of this here. Dishonored does the customizable user interface very well. Well, for gameplay here, we can only change a couple of rather basic things. In this next screen, you'll notice that I can pretty much toggle on and off tons of different little pieces of the UI. If I don't want tutorial notifications, I can turn those off. I can turn off pickup logs, player stance, awareness markers. I can adjust the crosshair. I can change the way the crosshair moves. I can change its opacity, all that kind of stuff, allowing me to really immerse myself in the game. If I want to, I can play the game with completely no HUD. Another big thing about Dishonored that's really great is fully rebindable key mapping for your keyboard and for your mouse. You can also totally change your settings however you'd like them. The video options, as I mentioned before, rather weak. Full screen on or off and resolution options are available, but that's about it. It does have a really great FOV slider, but other than that, nothing too much to change here. So it's not winning any points for the actual graphics part of the options menu. It's the fact that I can just turn off and tweak my UI to make it exactly how I want that really shines in my eyes. And that's pretty much all we need to do for talking about the settings menu here, other than the audio, which of course has separate sliders and subtitles, so that's all we need. Moving on. Alright, so I did mention before there's going to be some spoilers. This is kind of your last chance to skip ahead in the video to the next section if you don't want to see those spoilers, because I'm going to be talking about all sorts of points in the game here in the plot section. So, starting off, Dishonored, you take the royal control of the character Corvo Attano, the royal protector to the Empress in a magnificent city of Dunwall. Dunwall, much like the kingdoms around it, exist in kind of an industrial revolution, where through the use of a kind of semi-magical substance known as whale oil, they have been able to progress technology much farther than we see in a lot of fantasy-esque games, because Dishonored is at its heart a fantasy game with magic and swords. But at the same time, you also have this kind of technology going on with walls of light and you know, these strange mechanical creatures that are able to be controlled and super awesome compact crossbows. But anyway, in Dishonored, the game begins with you delivering a missive to the Empress regarding a rat plague that has been causing a lot of problems in your city. Now, before things can get off to any sort of good start on your return, you are attacked by a bunch of assassins. Now, at first you're able to ward them off, but unfortunately, the lead assassin, known as Dowd, appears and kills the Empress and kidnaps her daughter Emily, which is a bit of a problem when the guards show up and reach the top of the keep, as they find only you remaining. The royal spy master frames you for this killing and then sends you to jail. He then takes control of Dunwall as the Lord Regent, ruling the land in the Empress's place. Now, the reason that he does this is because he is actually the one responsible for the rat plague. He released it in order to eradicate the poor, and he wanted to cover his tracks, so he killed the Empress and took control. And this is where you're going to see kind of the main theme of Dishonored coming in over and over again. And that's the theme of people trying to do good, reaching for power, and then becoming corrupted for it. The only person in the entire game we see having power and not being corrupted by it is the Empress, and that's because she dies pretty much at the beginning of the game. Now, after you're arrested and dishonored, since you've been framed for murdering the person you were sworn to protect, you are sent to Coldridge Prison, where you rot away for well over a year. And you're constantly tortured as well. Fortunately, there are some people who have your back and want to see you freed. This is the Loyalists, which consists of an admiral, a lord, and somebody who is in the religious cult of the Empire. Together, you and these people must go around and take out key supporters of the Lord Regent. This can be done in a multitude of ways. Generally, you can do so very violently, killing everybody in your path, leaving a trail of bodies and the target dead, or you can go the non-lethal route, sneaking past everyone, being a shadow, and generally taking out your targets in a less dangerous and violent ways. Now, I'm not saying that this is the good way to do it and the other way is the bad way to do it, because this game doesn't really have a good and evil system, although you see a lot of people thinking of it like that, and a lot of reviewers even spoke of it like that when this game came out. But really, the system is about chaos. If you cause a lot of bodies to be left behind, you know, leaving a bunch of families orphaned and destitute and widows and all that kind of stuff, and going around just slaughtering nobility, the city is going to descend into chaos and madness, which is a pretty big problem for the city, as it's going to exacerbate the plague, increase the guards at all of your future missions, and just generally make things worse for the city. Contrast that with low chaos, where you leave as little bodies as possible, sneak past people, and only take out key targets non-lethally. That is not to say you're taking them out in a good way. For example, one target you actually have their tongues cut out and sent to work in the mines for the rest of their life. This is considered the quote-unquote good option. So this kind of goes to show you that this game isn't really about good and evil. It's about power. It's about chaos. It's about doing things with the least impact to other people. It's about selfishness versus selflessness, and these themes resonate throughout the entire game. Now, at this point, I haven't even talked about magic yet, or the ending of the game, so I'll try and get to this all really quick, because this is running a little bit long. So near the beginning of the game, you are granted magical powers by a being known as the Outsider. The Outsider seems interested only in chaos and amusing himself, and he gives powers to various people throughout Dunwall, including the assassin Dowd, who we spoke about earlier, and a strange old crone known as Granny Rags. Now, these powers allow Corvo to teleport, blink, slow time, summon rats, and blast people with wind. It's really going to be something we talk about more in the gameplay part of the game, but I need to mention it here because it is lore relevant. Now, let's talk about the ending. So, after the Lord Regent has been defeated, after he has been cast down or killed, you return to the Loyalists and are immediately betrayed. You're poisoned. And they were going to kill you, but luckily you still had a friend amongst them. The friendly boatman Samuel throws you on a raft and casts you out into the river, hoping you'll survive the poison. He has faith in you, and it turns out to be true. You wake up in the flooded district, which is where Dowd's gang has been hiding, and you need to basically make your way back into civilization. After facing off with Dowd going into his base and escaping the flooded district, you return to your HQ, where you find out that your former friends have killed pretty much everybody to cover their tracks. It's a rather unfortunate thing that's happened, but it goes back to those themes of power and whatnot. Depending on the chaos level of the game, the last level will change. It will either be completely chaotic, there'll be a storm brewing, the plague will have taken over the city, and your former allies will be fighting a civil war against each other on this lighthouse island where they are. The game will end with Admiral Hadlock, the former leader of the Resistance, holding the Empress's daughter over the edge, threatening to kill her. However, if you manage to keep things more peaceful in the city, you didn't tear up everything and make everybody go into a crazy panic, things will be a little bit more low-key, and Havelock will have instead poisoned his allies and realized that you're coming for him, begins to rant endlessly. Overall, I really enjoy the story of this game. I know I spoiled a lot, but there's still so much more to cover and we just don't have time. So we're gonna move on to the gameplay. I'm gonna talk about that a little bit, and hopefully this video doesn't run too long. Alright, so it's time to talk gameplay in Dishonored. Now, this is a stealth game, so it involves a lot of crouching around, a lot of hiding, and a lot of taking people out from the shadows whenever possible. You can take out enemies in two ways. You can either kill them, or you can non-lethally knock them out by originally coming behind them and choking them, or later in the game acquiring sleep darts and shooting them with these sleep darts. Now, one traditional mechanic in stealth games that has been kind of flipped around for Dishonored is the actual stealth system itself. Now, in most stealth games people are familiar with, they know to hide in the shadows, stand in the darkness, and they cannot be seen. Dishonored does involve that mechanic, but it's much more minor compared to line of sight. If somebody can see you, even if you're hiding in a shadow, there's a pretty good chance they are going to find you no matter what. Another core mechanic of Dishonored that's a little bit different than a lot of games in the genre is the fact that Corvo has two hands and he can use them independently. Now, yes, it's kind of weird, and thinking about how I phrased that sentence, most people have two hands that can operate independently, but it basically means Corvo can do two things at once. He can either have a power or a gadget or a weapon in his left hand, and he has his sword in his right hand, which means that you can blink towards an enemy with one hand and then slit their throat with the other in a single fluid motion. Now, the right hand is always the sword hand, but that's fine. It can be used for blocking, it can be used for breaking things, it can be used for hitting things. It's just kind of cool that you can use them both. As far as weapons and gadgets go in this game, there is a pretty big variety, and there is a DLC that adds more, but that is beyond the scope of this video. Leave it to say that you can either shoot people with a pistol, which is very, very strong, but very noisy and not great for an assassin, or hit them with a small hand crossbow, which can eventually be updated with sleep darts, explosive darts, auto reload, and a bunch of aim enhancers, which make it an incredibly powerful weapon. You can also get spring razor traps. Any enemies that walk by them will be torn to shreds. And I believe you can get grenades and rewire tools to change some of the defenses, which I'm going to have to mention a little bit later. Actually, I guess now is probably the best time to talk about them. So most of the defenses have to do with electricity generated by the mysterious and magical whale oil. Whale oil is a substance that powers pretty much everything in Dishonored, and most of the defenses are operated based off of it. One of the first defenses you'll see is the Wall of Light, which is essentially a wall of electricity that will kill anything that touches it. You can disable these by finding the whale oil tanks and disarming them, or by simply using a rewire tool on the console, which will cause it to destroy guards instead of you, essentially inverting the signal. There's other such defenses. There's dogs that run around in certain levels, overseers and their music boxes that cancel out your magical abilities, alarms, but for the most part, walls of light are the main source of barriers in Dishonored other than the guards themselves, so it makes things kind of simple, predictable, yet still very challenging. So another really amazing thing about Dishonored is the atmosphere. The world is probably the best part about this game. Everything seems to fit, from the guards who are only interested in whiskey and cigars tonight, to all of the little wonderful characters that bring this city to life. The game isn't actually that long, and you only see little parts of Dunwall, but it all feels alive and it all merges together. And the fact that there's so many creative ways that just seem to fit this universe so well to take out your targets, to sneak around, and just to see and watch the world makes this game even more amazing. Now, I could rant and rave about Dishonored for a heck of a lot longer, but I think you've got the message by now. If you understand what this game's about, then you probably can make up your mind. I mean, it's been over 12 minutes by now. Now, one last thing before we cut to the last part of the video, and that's the idea of getting caught. So sometimes when you're exploring around in Dishonored, you will get seen inevitably. I know in a lot of stealth games that means you game over or you have to load. In Dishonored, that just means you gotta fight your way out. Now, fighting your way out is actually pretty easy, unless for some reason you fail. In which case, the guards are actually pretty strong and will be able to take you out. So sometimes it's better to kill one foe and then flee, rather than just, attacking somebody blatantly and attempting to go through the game as if it's an action game, because that will not work. Alrighty then, well, it is time for me to wrap up the video. I know I didn't cover everything, but that's just impossible for a game like this, and I'm still not the best at this brand new format we've had. So as always, please leave your feedback down below. I really do do appreciate it. If you haven't guessed by now, my score for this game is for you to absolutely, without a shadow of a doubt, go buy this game right now. If you liked anything you saw here, I haven't even shown you a shadow of what this game is really like. I have hundreds of hours in it. If you like stealth games, if you like stuff like that, you need to go ahead and buy Dishonored. Anyway, that's pretty much all we have for today. Again, feedback below, stuff you'd like me to see and change in the future. I've been Xuul, and I hope that you have an excellent day. Goodbye.